Welcome everybody, I'm Music Nerd here, back with another tier list video. And this is not just any tier list that I'm doing, it's one that is special, it's near and dear to my heart. I'm a huge Prince fan, and as we all know, we lost Prince 5 years ago to this day. So I want to do a celebration of his work, and I'm going to be talking about his discography. Now, I can't cover every single Prince project, or else it's going to be a 2 hour, 3 hour video. I mean, the man has done so much music. So I'm only going to talk about the 80s period of his discography, his classic period. You know, so many great albums that came out of this decade for Prince. This is when he really became a superstar, rivaling Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Whitney Houston. So I'm excited to talk about this tier list, but before I get into it, if you enjoy the channel and you want to check out this content, you want to support the channel, hit that like button down below, hit the subscribe button down below, and if you're a return subscriber, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new content. Alright, so let's get into it. First song we're talking about is Dirty Mind, which came out in 1980. Now, I did a video on this. This came at a very crucial point in Prince's career because up until this point, he was known as kind of like a disco artist, and he came off the hit I Want to Be Your Lover in 1979, probably his biggest single to date. But he never really found himself. His identity wasn't really established yet. He wasn't the Prince that we all know today. He was still kind of figuring it out. And disco was kind of withering in the mainstream by 1980, so Prince kind of had to find a new sound to keep up, what was going currently. And so punk was still prevalent, and post disco was still becoming a burgeoning genre. So Prince released this solid album, and it's one of his best. It's definitely one of his most underrated. Very short, to the point, then clocking just under 40 minutes. But yeah, so one of Prince's shortest albums. But man, the way that he just completely just flipped the script with this album, faster songs, more lurid and sexual content, the sexual innuendos that we know today. I mean, he had a song called Head, which is basically, just about him getting head. Songs like Sister, Uptown are very punk influenced, funky as well. Especially love the grooves on Uptown. Kind of one of Prince's earliest songs that tackled sexual identity, a topic that he would revisit time and time again. Dirty Mind doesn't have the production values of his later albums, but this is when he really started to find his voice. And so I think it's a really slept down album, his discography. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Next album I'm going to be talking about is Controversy, which came out a year later. Of course, the title track Controversy is one of Prince's most well-known songs, but there's a ton of other great deep cuts in here as well, like Private Joy, Sister Christian. There's even Prince talking about anti-war and kind of like the Cold War sentiments going at the time. In the song called Ronnie Talk to Russia. But I think it's another solid album. I mean, Controversy is a little bit more poppier uh, than his last album, Dirty Mind, but still a lot of raunchy lyrical content that we would know from Prince, like Private Joy. There's a song called Jack You Off. The stuff that you can get away with in 1981. But Prince, once again, just hitting on all strides. It's not as, I would say, urgent and potent as Dirty Mind. There are some kind of like filler tracks here and there. But I think it's another very solid album in his discography. So I think I'm going to put in the beat here. The next one, 1999, Prince's first double album. To me, just a masterpiece. Prince, this is when he became a superstar. The first three songs in the album were his first three singles: 1999, Little Red Corvette, which is one of his most popular singles ever, and then Delirious, which was also another top 10 single. And so Prince was one of the few black artists to get played on MTV. to get played on mainstream radio alongside Michael Jackson at the time. And so Prince was he was out of here, he was in the stratosphere. What I love about this album is that, it really uh, emphasizes kind of the futuristic and what would be called the Minneapolis sound that'll be later adopted by artists like The Time, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis Productions. Prince really defined how funk was going to sound like for the rest of the decade. A lot of what funk in soul music sounded like in the 90s and in the aughts really came from this album. And it was a different type of funk because it was very computerized, lots of synths, live instrumentation wasn't really a thing like it was in the 70s production. So Prince was really establishing what funk could sound like for the future. And so it definitely, that's what gives this album a very timeless feel. There's so many great songs on this album. Of course, the 1999 track. What a incredible way to start off this album was. It plays on the theme of kind of a futuristic, partying until the end of the world, and so it sets the tone. And yeah, what else can I say about this album that hasn't already been said? It's one of my favorites. So I'm gonna put in the S tier. And then the next one, come on, talk about a winning streak. He goes from 1999 to 2 years later, Purple Rain, the biggest album of his career. I think it's now going on like 15 times platinum. But yeah, Purple Rain, one of the greatest rock albums of all time. This was obviously accompanied by Purple Rain, the movie, which made Prince a kind of a global superstar on the matinee screen. This is honestly his best movie. He made other movies, but none more acclaimed than this one. And yeah, Purple Rain just really, did it all for Prince. What can I say about this album? When Doves Cry is an incredible song, the biggest song of his career. Purple Rain, one of the greatest songs ever made, and it's an 8-minute song, and every time that I hear it, it never gets old. I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, The Beautiful Ones, Darling Nikki. It's a solid album front to back. It really, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Great rock songs, great funk songs, great ballads, and really amazing guitar solos. I think Prince had some of his best guitar solos of his career on this album, like Peter Blue. Also, this album was the reason why we have those little parental advisory stickers because, quick story, Al Gore's daughter was listening to the song Darling Nikki, and then Tipper Gore heard this and, had to, she started the PMRC, and that a lot of I think it was called the Dirty 16 or something like that, and Darling Nikki was on that list, and parents were becoming worried about kids listening to albums and is music becoming more violent? Is music becoming more, the debate that had been going on for centuries. Is music bad for our children? And so this was the album that created the parental advisory stickers for future albums. So Purple Rain has had a massive impact on many levels. What else is to say about it hasn't already been said? And one of the best album covers ever made. Yeah, this is obviously an S tier. Next album, Around the World in a Day. So this kind of started a new era for Prince where he be kind of, he was indulging in more psychedelic sounds, more Beatle-esque 1960s rock, paying tribute to Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone, psychedelic soul of that time period. And it was kind of, for this time, a weird, departure because people wanted another Purple Rain at the time, and Prince was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna give you something completely different." And I respect that. This album sounds completely different from Purple Rain, but there's still some great songs here. It doesn't completely come together. Some of the songs do sound a bit dated, but songs like Raspberry Beret has become one of Prince's more well-known songs. A great track. kind of Prince being at his lightest, and songs like Pop Life, which marries like the 80s funk with the psychedelic soul. It's a very underrated track that not a lot of people talk about, but Prince talking about the perils of being a pop star. Every artist has to have that type of song in their discography, and Prince had his version here, but it still sounds beautiful. Songs like Paisley Park, the title track, even America, where Prince has a great drum solo here. So there's some gems here. There's some hits, there's some misses, but at this time, this is what Prince was wanted to do. I think for what it was, it's pretty solid. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. The next one, Parade, which is another kind of soundtrack album. This accompanied his Under the Cherry Moon movie that came out. Now that movie didn't got critically panned. It didn't get much praise as Purple Rain did, but the soundtrack album was way better than the movie. And Prince is kind of continuing on his psychedelic run, but with a more kind of like defined, more honed in sound, more confident Prince. I think his last album was just kind of seeing what he can get away with psychedelic stuff. Here, Parade, it's the sound. The songs are a lot more. They're more full of life. Songs like Mountains and Sometimes It Snows in April have become hidden gems in his discography. And then there's got songs like Girls and Boys and Life Would Be So Nice, New Position. So Prince, kind of like doing like the poppy, but also staying true to his like funk and soul elements as well. Obviously, the biggest song from this album is Kiss, which was a single that sounded completely different from all of his other singles previously because it's more sparse, it's more minimalist, and became one of Prince's biggest hit singles, even though it sounded completely different from his previous singles. I think this album is fine. It's not an album that I really go back too much. Like Around the World in a Day. My opinion, Prince's psychedelic era is an acquired taste. Either you love it or you hate it. I can admit there are some bangers that have grown on me, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Next one, Sign of the Times. This is my favorite Prince album. To me, Sign of the Times is Prince at his best. Really, this is a second double album, and if I were to say it to anybody, if somebody were to ask me, hey, what Prince album would you start with? I actually want to say Purple Rain. I would say this album because I think it combines everything that Prince was working up towards to this point. So, you have the funk songs here with Housequake. You have the ballads, the sexy ballads like Adore. And then you have the sexy, like, kind of like, like a very sexy songs like It, where he's just talking about he just wants to have sex. And then you have your politically, socially aware tracks like Sign of the Times, which confronted AIDS, one of the first few pop songs that tackled AIDS and what was going on in the world. Sign of the Times is just a stunning track. And like Kiss, it's very sparse, it's very minimalist, and allows the lyrics to come to the fold, and when you listen to it, it's like, wow, this is really profound. Yeah, I think if we're talking about Prince's psychedelic era, this is probably the best of it. I can talk about this album for hours, but this is a masterpiece. I'm gonna put it in the S tier. Next one, Love Sexy, and as we see here, Prince is naked on the album cover, and I think it is probably my least favorite in his 1980s catalog. I don't think it really said anything too new about Prince that we already know. This album is very unique in that it is one song. How do I explain this? It's like one song, and then it's like, but it's a bunch of different songs in one. So when you read the credits, it's all the songs in one song. So it's like 40. It's the length of the album, but it's listed as one song. So it's like one continuous thing. I mean, Yeah, Prince is weird. I think we all know that by now. I mean, he would do stuff like this. Love Sexy, I think, is okay. It has some hidden gems here, like Alphabet Street, which is the biggest song of this album. I think it's a pretty good single. Glam Slam is a very underrated song, but a lot of these songs don't really go, anywhere. They're kind of like very jammy, and a lot of these songs are very long as well. Another one, I Wish You Heaven, another very slept on track that has taken on a lot of meaning since Prince has passed away. But yeah, Love Sexy is not an album that I really go back to much. Also because when I used to listen to this album, I have to skip around the point of the song. So it's not like you look at different tracks. It's like you have to skip around to the song that you want to hear, which can be very annoying at times. So I'm gonna put Love Sexy in the C tier. And the last one, another soundtrack album, but not for a Prince movie. This is the Batman soundtrack album. Now, you know, how do I measure this up against his other albums? Because obviously this album was done to promote a movie, and as far as soundtrack albums go, this is a very underrated one. I think Prince did a very good job with this. Obviously the biggest song from this album is Bat Dance, which has a pretty uh crazy music video as Prince being the Joker. And yeah, it's silly. I'm not gonna lie, Bat Dance is a little cringy, and obviously I wasn't around for this time, so I don't even know if people were into the Bat Dance. But the Batman phenomenon was real in 1989, and Prince played a huge part in that with this album. But I think there's other a lot of hidden gems in this album as well. Like Party Man is a great fun track. Scandalous is one of Prince's underrated ballads. Vicky Waiting, The Arms of Orion. I mean, yeah, I mean there's songs here that are just like, even though I know it's promoted, there's Batman, on the top of my mind, but you can isolate these and make these like Prince songs and they would work. For what it is, I think it's solid. It could have been done a lot worse, but yeah, I think Prince, and this is one of Prince's most successful albums. So gotta give it credit there. So I'm gonna put in the B tier. And so yeah, that's my tier list for Prince's 80s albums. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. What are some of your favorite Prince songs from this period? And yeah, I mean, I've done a bunch of these tier lists, and obviously more are coming on the way. But I just want to say, rest in peace, Prince. We all miss you. Thank you for the music that you gave us while you were here. And yeah, if YouTube recommends these two other videos to check out after this one, as always, love you guys. Peace.